Welcome back, everybody. Colin Coogan here with the Confluence Podcast, joined by
Luke Geraty
and Matt Squillante.
So we're here to discuss today. We're going to talk about a little bit of high water fishing, kind of go over what that means, what it looks like, some tactics, some approach angles. Last podcast we talked about why hire a guide.
Yeah.
And we're kind of moving on with down the list of kind of our season and what we're going to be kind of seeing over the next probably 2 months.
It's a very appropriate topic considering what's going on here in Northern California.
Yeah, our big river, the Sacramento River, went up quite a bit the last couple days.
Quite a bit? What did it go up from and to?
Yeah, we went from 5,000 CFS to about 16,000 CFS in the last 48 hours.
Snap their fingers,
yep.
push the button.
Yeah, so we're running Big River right now, and then all of our other rivers: Trinity River, Feather River, Yuba River, if not on the rise, going to be on the rise, and then even some of our winter walk and wade stuff. I can only imagine is rushing river right now.
But super common though. I mean, everywhere, right? Because
this is a common thing across
I've been
the
in
West.
Montana. I've been in Montana in April. It was like, this is a little bit different than the last time I was here in August. So
yeah, I think we kind of see two parts of high water through the West. We see kind of that initial rain that comes in storms in wintertime, and then we see high water events come in what we call runoff, which would be in springtime, late springtime when all the snow melt comes down. And that's going to be generally speaking from the Rockies all the way to the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of kick this off and talk about what you consider high water, Mr. Luke.
Yeah, well, that's a question that would be completely dependent upon the fishery, right?
Yeah.
So one river, 600 CFS might be like, it's just massive. The lower Sac, 15,000. We fish 15,000 all the time, right? In the summer, that's is traditionally when we're not in a drought.
I think it's safe to say that most people will put a boat down the Sacramento River up to 20,000.
Yeah, and then there's some of us who are crazy who have done 30,000.
Yeah.
But no names.
Yeah, no names. Me. But yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of it depends on the fishery you're on. I think the question kind of would be also related to what is considered blown out and what is high, because I think there's a difference between those two things, right? Yeah. So something can be really high, and the fish aren't gonna. They're still there.
Yeah.
They just move around a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the ways to do that, and we all have either apps or there's websites that we can check for all of our local rivers to find out flows. That's one easy way. Fly shops generally will have details about what's going on.
What apps do you like to use to check your local
that's
flows?
a great question, because I would like to talk about one particular app that used to be available, and it was actually put together by Northern Californian people. It was called Home Water. Did you ever use that one?
No, I don't use that one.
So you can't anymore because the API does not connect to the. Yeah. So I use Dreamflows generally, and then the River app. I think that's what's called.
And let us just specify we are not sponsored or getting any sort of endorsement by these apps that we're talking about. These are just what we use for our personal.
But if they would like to sponsor us,
if they'd like to sponsor us, give us free applications. Come on, give us a call, email us.
Yeah, the River app's though nice. I've used that off and on.
That's the one I use, is River app.
Yeah, it's consistent.
And you can save your favorites by state too, which is cool. Since I like to bounce around a little bit during the year, I can kind of save my California rivers, my Oregon, my Montana rivers, and it actually gives you some more tributaries to those rivers than Dreamflows might, or
and easier. I mean, Dreamflows just gets tough to use because it's not an app. It's a website, so you're generally having the fonts too. Yeah. So, but anyway, so what qualifies as high water is dependent on what river, what fishery you're on. There's a difference between high water and blown out. Blown out's one thing. High water is another. And I think the ways to kind of figure that out would be to check the flows, and what's cool about a lot of the flow charts is you can see patterns, right? They have 1 day forecast, 3 day forecast, 7 day or history as well. 30 days. You can look in the past, so you can kind of get an idea of what is, I think what something would normally be at. Yeah. But I mean, one of or a couple of our rivers, right? They don't actually change the flows coming out of the dam. These tailwaters, it's all runoff from the creeks coming in. So if you look online at the top, it might be 300 still, and it's like, oh, it's fine. And then you get over there and you're like, oh, it's not fine. A couple of floats down because of all those tributaries pumping in water. So I had the weirdest thing the other day, speaking about high water. I was on a river. I was guiding, and half of all the water coming in on the right side of the river was muddy, and all the water coming in on the left side was clear. It was the wildest thing.
You just had this nice mud line going down.
It was like so crazy.
Sometimes that can be good though.
No, I fished well, but it was just such a weird thing, you know. And so I don't know, one side, I'm assuming one side is where there was more fire, because I think it was like, you know,
more sediment.
Soot and whatnot, or mud. And the other creeks were all, you know, fine. But it was just wild because we're like, this is like Willy Wonka land, man. It's like so weird. So
and so just for people that don't maybe listening or watching this that haven't experienced what a blown out river looks like, or what a fishable high water river looks like. So just to clarify, so what we consider a blown out river is something that is brown. So like a color of dirt in your yard. Okay, that is brown, muddy, like that kind of...
Or like Matt's pants,
Yeah, so like a brown color where the visibility is, let's say, less than a foot. That would be kind of considered blown out river, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then,
I mean, even a foot sometimes is like, oh, there's a little bit of visibility. Yeah, exactly. We can still do this.
Yeah, and then as far as fishable conditions go, it turns into more of a greener color.
Yeah.
So like...
Steelhead green.
Yeah, steelhead green, or like, you know, like a dark green or a light green into clear. Right? Clear would be like 100% visibility, can see bottom. So that's how we gauge as far as high water, or even not even high water, is whether it's blown out or not. Is the color.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, there obviously with the flows, the safety factor becomes an issue at certain flows, right? You know, because like on the lower Sac, you know, 20,000, I think everybody's pretty much like, oh, this isn't that bad. When I did 30,000 or 36,000, it was definitely like, it was a big river. And some of those toilet bowls, a little nervous.
Yeah.
A little nervous.
A lot of water.
Yeah, it was a lot of water, you know, but it just comes down to, it's a kind of a thing where it just depends on your rowing ability too, though, right? Because like there's some people that probably wouldn't feel comfortable going out at 20,000, you know, but like some other people might be like, oh, it's not that bad. Because, you know, that's just based off of your rowing ability or knowledge of hydraulics and all those different things that become a factor on the river.
General just
safety. You know. I mean, I think wouldn't you agree, Matt? Play it safe. Like that's. I mean, I don't mean that.
You're talking on the mother hand.
I'm not meaning that in a disparaging way. I mean, that's one thing I really respect about you is I know that you take safety serious. Like I know that you're not going to go you're not going to be like, let's just send it. You know?
No, unless we're in your
unless you're with me and
your jet boat, and I'm just like, go through that. Come on, man.
Oh yeah, you did do that.
I mean, it's different when you have an engine. I was like, man up, man. Let's go.
I was a little scared. That's true. I forgot about that. Moving on.
But it worked out just fine.
I didn't die.
Like I didn't put you in a bad situation. Yeah. I think that's really important. I do take safety really seriously. I don't have it anymore, but you know, I had for a long time. I kept an email a text on my phone, literally from a lady who just texted. She's like, "Thanks for saving my life today." Not a strong wader, didn't have a staff. It was during runoff. She made some bad choices and I just happened to be there. Basically got herself in the middle of the river, completely froze because she was scared to death.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was able to go out there and help her. I had a staff. So yeah, I take safety serious in general, but especially during high water. Typically, high water, blown out is synonymous again with colored up. So we lose visibility. In those conditions, my recommendation and the rule that I follow is I usually will wade no deeper than about mid-shin. Because you have no visibility, so you can't see if you're going to step into a hole. You can't see if there's a rock ahead of you, right, that you're going to trip over and it's going to send you falling. The other thing synonymous with high water is faster water, right? Generally, if it's high and it's blown out, it's going to be fast. So if you do fall in, you generally are going to be dealing with much faster water. And it's going to be deeper, closer to the edges, right? So very quickly you're in deep water. So it's just in those conditions, you know, you should have a heightened awareness about being safe. And in general, you know, you should always have a staff with you. If you're going to go wade, doesn't matter whether it's high water or not. Smart people, you know, use a wading staff. I was 10 years old wading in the ocean at night with no lights, 200 yards out, walking on a sandbar. I have a lot of wading experience from a young age in both the ocean and rivers, and I use a staff every single time I go. So
I think that also kind of gets to the whole like methodology or like how to find fish though too, especially when you're wading, because it seems like wouldn't you guys say that most of the time this is like number one rule is like don't just go jump in the river and go out deep, like a lot of is commonly thought, well, there's no fish in the shallow water, right? I mean,
never.
You should always fish the water. Yeah, we've proven that together. There's never in inches of water. But like you should always fish the shallow water before you go out real deep. But I mean, when you're walking and wading in high water, it seems to me like most of the fish are on the edges. So it's like you don't need to be, waist deep out there. It's like the fish are behind you if you are, you are doing that. I mean, especially true on the upper sack. I mean, when I first started fishing the upper sack, I just didn't pay attention to any of the flows things. I would just go in the winter and the spring, and I'd get there and I'd be like, "What happened?" Because the river was like, 1800 CFS, down at Pollard Flat, and it's like, man, like I don't even know where to begin. And but I kind of learned over a few trips, like it was still fishable. You just had to fish the edges. Like you didn't even have to wade most of the time. Like the soft waters where they were all hanging out at.
Do you do walk and wade?
I have done it once. It was yeah.
So it was that one time.
One time.
I got it.
I did.
You can't put a boat on there. Right?
I did have a boat on the upper sack. It was 1800 CFS. So. No, it's funny because I do default to like. Yeah, my raft or my boat can go down that. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, walking away.
It's all good.
People do that.
That's a great point. And Colin, I know you and I have talked about this as well. As far as what the fish do, what they're doing when the water gets high and how you might adjust your tactics to that reality. What have you found to be true in high water conditions?
Yeah, so especially in like I spend, it's not an unknown thing. I spend a lot of my springtime in a walk and wade environments with folks. So and we are usually dealing with some sort of runoff, either whether due from snow melt coming in or from just storms.
I mean, it's just a normal thing.
Yeah. We deal with a little bit on the higher side of water. So yeah, just adjusting my tactics where we're fishing a lot more tighter to the bank, like you guys are talking about. We're not needing to wade to our waist to catch the fish.
Yeah.
When that flow pushes up, every body of water is slightly different from small creeks to big tail waters. But when that flow comes up from let's say a standard base flow, those fish find refuge. They're not going to sit in the fast stuff. Those fish are going to be moving to the softer edges, into the tree lines, into the the soft water pockets. And then we're adjusting our tactics accordingly. I do a lot of tight line nymphing in those situations.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Where we're ditching the bobbers and we're kind of high sticking through that stuff, getting them move real slow, real low.
Yeah. I think too, the other thing about that too, in addition to that is, like I always like to describe Californian trout as like the laziest trout in the entire universe. I mean, I've fished all over. They're not like as chasey generally, like for streamers, although you can do that with high water. That's one thing I do like about high water. But they are going to go where the refuge is a big thing too. But like on those pools that become really deep and almost like, I don't know how we can fish that. The water down low is slow, right? It's not moving at the same speed. So that's where the tight lining can become really effective in those deep, especially on the upper sack, I'm thinking. Yeah. Or the McLeod, it'd probably be applicable too. But it's crazy because with the tight lining you're slowing everything down, right? And you can do really well that way too. But they're like down, like they're just chilling in that slow moving water. So like, and what's cool about a lot of those fisheries is that it's such a small fit, like most of those places are accessible by a 10-foot rod, right? Because it's not like
right off the rod tip.
Yeah, I mean you're not, you don't have to wade out there real far because the river's it's just not that.
But you can't catch fish close to
you. Can't. No, it's not possible to catch fish close to you. Yeah, for you. Colin and I are professionals at catching them very close to us. So.
I forget that. Thanks.
We're here to let you know.
Good.
In the dirty water, higher water conditions, do you guys like what is your approach as far as bug selection? How are you guys changing your tactic? Let's say, normal flows, clear water in a situation. Are you guys adapting and changing a little bit as far as what you're putting on the end of the line?
All depends on the fishery.
I just throw anything on there whenever I go fishing. I mean,
night crawlers.
I don't care about flies or bug selection at all.
Salmon.
I haven't really studied insects. So,
yeah. He knows nothing about that.
No, it's not my forte. I definitely do adjust my tactics. One of the things, like we just talked about, is speed. And that's really important because largely trout are visual feeders. Okay, they're visual predators. And when the water is what we call turbid, colored up, and it's moving faster, speed is one of those things that's going to impact their ability to pick up food, right? It's moving by them much faster. Mm-hmm. So getting deep, slowing it down, finding that slower water, that's one good adjustment. As far as fly selection goes, that turbid water, the light's coming in, but it's not going very deep into the water. Okay, so there's little light actually passing through, getting down through the water very deep. Lucky maybe if it's a foot, depending on how colored up. Like right now, we saw the Sacramento, the lower Sac, coming over the bridge here, and it literally was the color of my pants. So there's zero visibility, no light is getting through, and in that case, I've seen experiments where biologists will take, or fisheries guys will take different colored, like rabbit strips, for example, and they'll put them in different colored water. And one of the things that was a little bit surprising to me, seems counterintuitive, like brighter is going to show up, right? Well, that's not the case actually, because no light's coming in. There's nothing to make that bright to shine on that brighter color, so it actually disappears. Yeah. So I'm always going dark. Okay, that's number one. Okay, because it actually shows up. So contrast against that dark water, black, purple, green, stuff like that. Second is fish, trout specifically, are visual feeders, but they also have a lateral line, like a lot of other fish, that's full of neuromasts, basically little sensors that pick up pressure waves and other signals in the water. Those pressure waves are really important to a trout in dirty water because every object in the water pushes a pressure wave ahead of it. It's a lot like, sort of an easy explanation would be a lot like sonar, right? So that trout can pick up that object in the water. The farther away it is, how big it is, and which direction it's moving, okay? So a bigger object, like let's say a size 4 rubber legs, is going to push a bigger pressure wave. I may know, for example, it's just not the time to fish a stonefly, right? But I'm using that bigger fly to push a bigger pressure wave in the water. And essentially what it's doing as it's moving toward that fish is it's ping, 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 like sonar. As it gets closer, it's ping, ping, ping. And as it's really close, it's ping, 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 ping. And that fish is picking it up, even though he can't see it. And he's moving. So that bigger fly is going to push that more pressure wave. And I'm going to have something smaller maybe off of it that I think they're actually going to eat, right? Dude, that they're actually looking for.
I just felt like I was sitting watching The Hunt for Wreck.
Red October?
Yeah.
Dude,
where's Alec Baldwin?
I tried to add some suspense.
Yeah, it was good.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Like my ping sounded right?
I think you're...
Because we don't like each other. So.
No, we don't. We are enemies. Yeah. The whole... It's hard to deny just putting a rubber legs on when it is like that, But again, I think that high flow versus blown out is two different things. So a lot of times we're fishing high waters that you can. I have caught plenty of fish on size 18 mayflies in high water, because it's not there. They can still see everything fine,
Depending on the visibility.
Yeah, it's all about just the visibility. Yep. So when I get to a river, if I'm guiding or if I'm doing an exploratory to see if we can actually fish, it's always based off of conditions, because one thing I have definitely come to believe or experience is that fish can see way better than, the fact that they're eating a size 20 midge, for example, is they obviously can see pretty dang good. or they just literally just keep their mouth open, like some people say. But it's like, I mean, I remember I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons ago when the SAC blew out that first year when we, finally had some water. We had a couple trips where they were like, the guys were like, we don't care, because I think it was during COVID. So they're like, we don't care. We just want to go. We don't, we just want to whatever. And we went out, and I was shocked that we were catching fish on like size 18 perdigons, and I'm just like, because I was running 3 flies, big rubber legs, some spherical Baetis pattern or circle caddis. You can judge me all you want. And then use that all the time. That's what you should do. And then I'd run like a little Spanish bullet or a hot spot, and I was catching fish on that little fly almost more than anything else.
Yeah. So is there any month of the year when you won't run an
No,
egg?
there is not. Be very clear. I think you could use a circle caddis or a spherical Baetis any month of the year on a salmon. I don't remember that salmon.
What color is your favorite, Luke?
I'm not going to tell you what those are.
Because you hate me.
My bead box will never be on this podcast. Nor will my nail polishes.
But if you would like to know, sign up for our Patreon, $20 a month, and you'll get access to our bead boxes and fly boxes.
I started an OnlyFans, and it's
Bead
really just
bank.
all my beads. So.
He's like, let me get my bead box.
Accurate. I'm from Alaska, dude. What do you expect? It's not even that bad.
You always come at like, whenever anything comes up, you're challenged. You're like, yeah, but I'm from Alaska. Like that solves everything.
The explanation.
That solves everything.
It's like you with when you open up your midge box and there's like 7,000 of every variation of color, and you're like, no, the fish can really see these microscopic things.
They can.
Same thing with beads. That's the point. You're judging me. But yeah, I do. But the high water, the fly selection too. Getting back to bugs.
Yeah.
The springtime. The stonefly, it seems like whenever it gets kind of high, I mean, there's times where I'll double rubber leg it just because that's what they're eating, especially on the sack. I think that springtime, time, it's like, you've all had clients, I'm sure, where it's like every fish you're catching is on the rubber legs, and they're like, why are we using these other flies? And you're like, that's a very good question.
Because I like beads.
Put on another stonefly though, because it's the primary food source at that time in the spring. A lot of times when you're doing walk and wade, you've got, the salmon fly hatch has, for me, anytime other than last year when I actually go out and I'm intentionally going to fish for salmon flies, it's always a high water, like every single time. Like, there is no such thing as like perfect conditions.
Yeah, usually we're in a little bit bigger flows during that time.
And it makes it
June,
fun.
April, May, June. Usually
because you're fishing the edges, right? So on the upper sack especially, like I love that whole fishing the edges where it's that you make that salmon fly cast and it's just kind of bobbing there and just slowly working and then just gets blown up. Like that's awesome. You don't even need to be out there in the fast stuff. So that I think that's a pretty big. That is, getting the question of like, should you go fishing? Because we were joking around about like, if it's blown out, there's such a fine line, right? And that's why I think if you're going with the guide, you should trust your guide, because we don't want to not catch fish.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Matt doesn't care. You and I always want to catch fish.
Yeah, we're never gonna know if we think we don't have a chance.
Obviously.
My bead box is only this big, and Luke's is a bank.
We don't like each other.
I have my own boat bag for just beads.
I know. That's when I actually was like, all right, Colin's okay. That was the moment.
Yeah, we don't like each other. That's why Colin between us.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows that.
It's true.
I think another, coming back to flies, another thing to consider is that waters, in a tailwater, we generally think, oh, that water is just coming out of the dam, right? But you mentioned earlier that there's other sources, and that water, for example, was coming off that bank.
Yeah,
on one side, it was really dirty.
Rain,
okay, so clearly stuff is being washed, not just dirt, but everything in the dirt is being washed into the river, which
I know where he's going.
Is a good time to consider fishing something like a San Juan worm.
Oh, I knew you were going to be there. I'm the bead guy.
I was going to say my worm box.
Exactly.
Like this, because I'm not from Alaska.
Yeah. When I was like, what are all those for? You're like, I'm not from Alaska. So you were like you're like, I just want to let you know but
not from
Alaska. Yeah, but so you would use because like that's the proverbial wisdom, right? If it's muddy or it's got a little bit of
But what about
color.
A pegged worm in a bead?
I will never have a problem with that, guys.
I'll split the difference.
And
he's a worm guy. He's a bead guy. I'm gonna put that San Juan worm and peg it with a bead.
Yeah,
we're going right in the middle.
If we really want to offend the listeners, my favorite is to take my spay rod and to swing a thin, squirmy worm on a bead. Oh, it just makes me so happy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We just had 500 people. Stop listening. No, but the worm. But on a serious note, like my first time I used a San Juan worm was in Montana, and it was in April, and it was like we were doing okay. I think we were fishing the big hole at the time, and we were doing okay with other things. And then, but like as soon as we put on the squirmy I think it was a squirmy, it was like this is actually dumb. We're now entering into this is actually not even fun because it was like 10 seconds into the drift, we were getting just crushed. Do you guys pretty consistently, like if there's a little bit of color in the river, if it's had a lot of rain, are you pretty much always going to throw a San Juan or some type of a worm pattern?
100% personally.
Yeah.
They can just be really effective.
Yeah.
The fish eat worms. It's that simple.
Sounds so much like beads.
It sounds a lot like beads.
You're making my point for me. Keep going. Yeah. It's not always about effectiveness.
It's not, man.
It's about the grab, bro.
Tug is the drug.
Yeah. No, I mean, but on a serious note, like what about you? Are you gonna answer
I'm
that
going
question?
bead every time.
Oh, you are?
In dirty water. Yeah, more than likely. And I mean, in our tailwater environments,
Keep talking.
I'm throwing a bead probably first, maybe a bead and a worm.
Yeah.
Now in a trout environment in dirty water,
okay.
I'm probably leaning way more towards the worm than I am a bead.
Yeah.
Only just because in a walking environment, I'm not carrying around 20 pounds of bead boxes with me. But
that's why I don't do walk and wait, guys. Is because I can't.
You can't carry your bead boxes.
My bead box is too large.
So I'm probably throwing on the San Juan first in that environment. But maybe a big attractor nymph, colors, things like that. But yeah.
Wait, so going back to another thing too you mentioned, Matt, I think that is really good. Like when it comes to certain things, like what, people are always asking like, hey, how can we be more successful as anglers? Because I was like, you have this happen where people will be like, they'll DM you on Instagram, and be like, man, you guys were railing. What were you doing? And then I had this happen on the SAC somewhat recently where we were like just fishing, it was fishing really well. And this boat was out, and they were trying, and they were like, hey, can you help us out? So I was like, yeah, I gave them, I said, this is what we're using. And so they were like, oh, cool, I got some of those, and he put them on. And we just kept running laps, and we were hooking up, fish almost every drift. And at the end, he was like, he said something like, man, I don't know what we were doing wrong. And I was like, I said, well, how deep were you running? And he's from his bobber to his weight was like 1.5 feet. And I'm like, well, what's your first? So the variation of your depths, right? Fishing depths has to be adjusted when you're on high water too, because like what you normally would fish at like the Trinity is notorious for that. When it's high water, you can't get away with a 4 to 5 foot drop. It just ain't going to get you down, to where the fish are in those deeper runs. So like, you mentioned weights. I think adjusting weights, making sure you are getting down, leader, your drop depth from your bobber to your weights needs to maybe be adjusted too. It just depends. So like, I guess what my point is that, when you go and you fish high water, you need to put on your thinking cap, like you need to actually do it I call it trout fishing. Like, oh, we were actually trout fishing today. Why? Because trout are not bass, and they're not, I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but they're not as easy as bass can be sometimes. And I know bass can be picky as well, but trout can be really picky to where it's like, no, we had to actually we had to find that bug that they were eating. We had to get to the right depth, all those different things. And so like with high water, I think there's a number of factors. You show up on the bank, you need to read the water differently. You need to expect the fish to probably be in different locations than they were, 4 months ago when you were fishing in June or July. You might need to use different patterns too. Like you're saying, if there's a lot of, if the potential for a worm is in there, like you would be crazy not to throw one on if you want to catch fish. There's just a lot of factors that go into it, So I think every time you go fish, should you go fish? Yes, most of the time you should go fish because it's fun, even if you might not catch a bunch of fish. And then secondarily, like try new things, be creative. I think that's a big part of fishing is like, don't just, well, this worked 3 months ago. It's like, cause I mean, I hear that stuff all the time.
Yeah, think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I went to the Upper Sac one time and it was when it was blown. It was in those early days of me, like, I'm like, why is the river so big? You know, it's like totally didn't even pay attention to the weather. And I ended up just ripping streamers and it ended up being a pretty decent day, just throwing little muddlers and little woolly buggers, you know, like I maybe could have caught more fish other ways, but it was still like fun, you know, and it was just something different. So I think that's a big thing about any fishing, any types of water. We have experience, right? That's what separates us from other anglers oftentimes is the fact that we're just on the water a lot of time, and you're not going to get there. Like you're not going to be as productive with the high water if you don't go, you know? So that's why I would say, hey, if it's not blown out, why not?
Yeah.
It's fun, you know? So that's my thoughts on, you know, like all those different things you got to really kind of think about doing it all. Matt naturally does all those things because he's the guide's guide, but you and I, we're lesser. We're mere mortals. By the way, I hate you, Matt.
Yeah, I don't like you either.
Be very clear.
Yeah. But we did behind your back coordinate. So I wore brown pants and he wore green, you know, to indicative. Well, indicative of the water types that we were talking about.
Yep.
So
good, bad.
Yeah, basically, you know.
All right. Well, I feel like we've covered it all.
Yeah.
Kind of gave people high water.
Give high water a shot.
Yeah.
You know, kind of
just don't let it keep you inside. Like,
yeah.
If you're going out fishing on your own, do a little research. Don't let it stop you.
Yeah.
If you want to hire a guide, feel free. Call people and ask around. Mm-hmm. Ask us. We'll gladly give you our honest opinion. We're constantly, especially this time of year when high water is in play, we're in communication with each other of what's going on. Is it fishable? Is it not fishable? And
with the guiding thing too, this is important. I think generally speaking, at least for me, I think you guys are the same. Like we want to go and we want to catch fish. We want to 100%. Have really good conditions and on a lot of the steelheading rivers, the difference between like an absolute epic day and a day that would be like, yeah, that was a boat ride could be one day.
No, yeah.
Like you know, you have to just play it by ear, and then you know sometimes adjust your plans. But yeah, don't be afraid.
Yeah, don't let it scare you off from fishing.
I was telling someone because they're like, well, can we get them if it's a little colored up? And I'm like, it's steelheading. You can get them when it's colored up, or you could not get them when it's colored up.
Yeah,
it could be absolutely clear and perfect conditions, and you won't hook one. Or it could be like you and I were on the river last year where it was like muddy and we still got an adult. Like I have no idea how this fish.
Yeah.
The sonar it was beep, beep, and it ate that rubber. Yeah, I just remember.
I'm sorry. What did he eat?
It was beep, beep, rubber legs.
Rubber legs
with a bead wrapped around it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Right on.
All right. Well, in closing, guys, Matt, where you been at lately?
I've been at the Vice tying a lot of flies. In all honesty, I've been out on the Yuba a little bit, and that's going to be shaping up soon here with some squalid dry. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. How about you, Mr. Luke?
Almost
what you been up to?
Trinity. Last 3 weeks has been Trinity. I feel like we fished the Sac within the last 3 weeks. Was it 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's like we fished the Sac. We did just to kind of go out and just try to do something.
Trying to put the grudge.
We were trying to mend our relationship.
Yeah, trying to bury the hatchet.
He's like, "Go faster!" And but yeah, it actually fished okay. It wasn't terrible. We did pretty decent. But yeah, so I've been on the Trinity a lot, and it's been either the conditions have been perfect. There's been a lot of days where it's like, oh my gosh. But it's still been steelheading. There's been, some days where we hook 5 adults, and there's other days we're working really hard for that one, one or two fish, and a lot more little dinks around. That's kind of cycle
back.
Yeah, because it's like I feel like we had some halfy days where it was like 180 half pounders or something stupid in August.
That number keeps going up. It was like
75.
We got to your house. It was like, guess how many we caught, guys? 100.
I was like, I had a clicker. 1, 2, 3. But yeah, it was dumb. And then like December, it kind of slowed down for the halfies. Like, you notice how we weren't catching as many.
No,
and like, I don't know, like January 1st, they're like, we're back.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. So, which is, I think, kind of cool.
It keeps it entertaining.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because like, you know, some of my clients are like first time Trinity people. Like they're just there to like try it, you know? And so like, it's cool to watch them be excited about catching trout, you know, 12 to 15 inch trout. They're like, oh yeah, they're all excited. And then when they hook an adult, they're just like, oh my gosh, you know, like that's so big. But yeah, the Trinity's been pretty cool. I've done some spade trips over there too. And I'm like, you know, those are always really fun. I did a couple combo trips where we swung flies to do some runs. And like one day I had this, like, you know how you've got some clients, you're like, oh, they're the client of clients. Like they're just really good anglers, super fun people. There's just a lot of people that are really fun to fish with. Well, this guy's like checked every box for me. We just had a really great day. He's from an area of Alaska that I'm from. Okay. And like my favorite steelhead river in the world, which will never be named, he like fishes it all the time. And it was just like, it was super cool. And he got we swung in three different runs and he hooked 3 different fish swinging flies and like single hand too. It's like the old school way, you know, not a spare rod, just whoosh. You probably don't know about that, but it's like this. Whoosh.
Is it?
It's like there's a sonar, yeah, with his thing.
Cool.
So yeah, that was really cool. But
Let's try that.
Yeah, you'll get there someday. How about you? Where have you been?
Same. I've been hanging out on the Trinity.
Yeah.
I've been there.
High-fiving each other.
High-fiving each other. Yeah, just kind of chasing in between storm drops. It seems like kind of what you said. If we're catching it kind of 48 hours off a push of big water, it's really great. If we're catching it kind of a day after, it's a little touch and go.
Yeah.
But I kind of foresee that trend. I'm going to be up there for the next month. Got some open availability still, but kind of just riding the wave through the next month up there. But when we are hitting it right, we're having great opportunities.
Yeah.
I fished it in some not so great conditions recently, and we still found it.
Yeah,
we still found it. We still found some opportunities of catching some nice adults.
Colin and I are like, I have no idea how that happened today because the water was like just a little. Well, like there was a couple times where we'd start out and it'd be great, and then like 3 or 4 hours into it, it's like,
worse.
There she goes. Yeah. And then like, how did we hook that? I don't know. It's just funny.
So you know, we're out there working hard and trying to make it happen and stay in the game. But the quality of the fish that we're seeing are really nice. So you can catch one nice fish of a lifetime, and that can make someone's day. So that's what we're doing for the next month, and then kind of moving on to some other fisheries.
Yeah, we're moving into the spring. I mean, we all 3 of us guide the Lower Sac in the spring. You do a lot of walking weight. You do a lot of walking weight too.
Yep.
So that's the big thing upcoming. Is I love the Lower Sac in the spring. I'm just so excited about it because it's shorts, sandals, you know, it's like the fishing's great. There's a thing called a PMD, Matt. It's a pale morning, it's a mayfly. There's a lot of those. Okay, I'll show you some of those flies.
What color egg
They're
is
purple.
that?
They're purple.
It's a yellow egg.
Got it.
This is the PMD. They're yellow. So, that'll be exciting. So, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to sign us off. Please make sure that you subscribe, leave us a review. It really helps all of us out just in the analytics part of things. Give us a follow. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, at Confluence.
YouTube, I think.
YouTube, wherever you're watching this, listening to it, all that kind of stuff helps. Feel free to share it with a friend that you might think that this content would be interested in.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, see you guys later.
Thanks.